In the ancient land of Canaan, under skies filled with dust and stars, there lived a young man whose life would become one of the greatest stories ever told. His name was Joseph. He was only 17, young, hopeful, full of life, but he was also the most hated man in his own family. Because Joseph was loved differently, his father, Jacob, saw something special in him. While the other sons worked in the fields and slept under rough blankets, Joseph was given affection the others never received. One day, Jacob presented Joseph with a robe unlike anything in their camp, a richly woven garment of many colors, elegant and rare. To a father, it was a gift. To his brothers, it was a declaration of war. Every time Joseph wore it, jealousy burned hotter. Every glance at that robe reminded them that they were second place in their father's heart. But the robe was not the true reason they hated him. It was the dreams. Joseph began seeing visions in the night, strange, powerful dreams that felt more real than waking life. In one dream, he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in a field when suddenly their sheaves bowed before his. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down before him. Joseph, still young and innocent, shared the dreams openly. He expected wonder, maybe excitement. Instead, he received fury. "Do you think you'll rule over us?" they asked. Their hatred deepened into something dangerous. Even Jacob was troubled by the dreams, though deep inside he remembered every word. Time passed, but anger remained. Some wounds grow quietly in silence. Then came the day everything changed. Joseph's brothers had taken the family flocks far from home to graze near Shechem. Days passed without word. Jacob grew concerned and called for Joseph. "Go see if your brothers are safe," he said. "Then return and tell me." Wearing the robe they despised, he set out alone across the harsh countryside. The wind blew sand across the earth. The sun scorched the hills. Yet Joseph walked with purpose, never knowing he was walking toward betrayal. Far off in the distance, the brothers spotted a figure coming toward them. Then they saw the robe. One brother laughed bitterly. "Here comes the dreamer." Another answered with words that changed history. "Come now, let's kill him." There was no hesitation in the air. Years of resentment had matured into murder. They imagined burying him in the wilderness and telling their father a beast had devoured him. The dreams would die with the dreamer. But Reuben, the oldest, stepped in. He did not want blood on their hands. Secretly hoping to rescue Joseph later, he persuaded them to throw him alive into a nearby empty pit instead. So they waited. Joseph approached smiling, unaware of the darkness in their hearts. He greeted them, asked if all was well. Then they rushed him. Hands seized him from every side. He shouted in shock. They ripped the robe from his body. Dust rose as he struggled. He cried out their names one by one. These were not strangers. These were his brothers. But envy had made them cold. They threw him into the pit. Joseph slammed against the stone floor below. Above him, only a circle of burning sky remained. He screamed for help, begged them to listen, promised he meant no harm, and above the pit, they sat down to eat, bread in their hands, Joseph's cries in their ears. Then, in the distance, came the bells of camels. A caravan of Ishmaelite traders traveled toward Egypt, carrying spices, balm, and goods. Judah looked at the caravan and saw opportunity. "What profit is there if we kill our brother?" he said. "Let's sell him." Murder became business. They pulled Joseph from the pit, not with mercy, but for sale. Silver coins exchanged hands. Joseph was bound and dragged toward the caravan. He begged them, pleaded with tears. No one moved. The brothers watched until he disappeared into the desert. Then they dipped his robe in goat's blood and carried it home. Jacob saw the torn garment and collapsed in grief. He believed Joseph had been devoured by wild animals. He tore his clothes and mourned for days, refusing comfort. While a father wept over a dead son, that son was still alive, but he was chained, exhausted, and heading toward Egypt. Egypt was unlike anything Joseph had known. Massive structures rose over crowded streets. Soldiers marched in bronze armor. Priests served foreign gods. Wealth and power filled the land, but Joseph entered it as property. At the slave market, he was sold again, this time to Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. Everything Joseph once had was gone. No family, no freedom, no future. Many men would have broken there. Joseph did not. He worked with excellence. He spoke with humility. He remained faithful in small things no one else noticed. Day after day, something unusual happened. Everything Joseph touched prospered. Fields flourished. Accounts increased. Order replaced chaos. Potiphar saw it clearly. This young Hebrew slave carried favor. Soon, Joseph was promoted from servant to overseer of the entire household. Potiphar trusted him with everything. Joseph now managed wealth, land, servants, supplies, all because he had chosen discipline in a season of humiliation. But new levels bring new tests. Joseph had grown into a strong and handsome man. Potiphar's wife noticed him and began pursuing him relentlessly. Day after day, she tempted him in secret. She offered pleasure without consequence, power without price. Joseph refused every time. "How could I do this great evil?" he said. One day, when the house was empty, she cornered him and grabbed his cloak. Joseph fled immediately, leaving the garment in her hand. Humiliated and furious, she screamed for the servants. Then she lied. She accused Joseph of attacking her. The evidence she held was the cloak he left behind. Potiphar was enraged. Whether he fully believed her or not, Joseph was thrown into prison. Again, Joseph lost everything. Again, he suffered for doing what was right. Again, life made no sense. The prison was dark, brutal, forgotten by the world. Iron doors slammed. Chains scraped stone. Men rotted there for years without trial, and Joseph entered those gates innocent. This is where many people would surrender to bitterness, but Joseph refused to become the victim of his circumstances. Even in prison, he served faithfully. He encouraged others. He remained steady. Over time, the prison warden entrusted him with responsibilities over the other inmates. Because true character survives every environment. Years passed in silence. Then 2 royal prisoners arrived, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker. Both had offended the king. Both were disturbed by troubling dreams. Joseph noticed their distress and asked what troubled them. They explained they had dreamed strange visions, but had no interpreter. Joseph listened carefully. To the cupbearer he said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your position." To the baker he said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will execute you." It sounded impossible. Yet 3 days later, both dreams came true exactly. As the cupbearer prepared to leave prison, Joseph asked only one thing: "Remember me when it goes well for you." But once restored to Pharaoh's palace, the cupbearer forgot him. Joseph remained in prison for 2 more years, forgotten by men, not forgotten by God. Then Pharaoh himself began dreaming terrifying visions. 7 healthy cows were swallowed by 7 gaunt cows. 7 full heads of grain were consumed by 7 thin heads. None of Egypt's magicians or wise men could explain them. Panic spread through the palace. That is when the cupbearer suddenly remembered the Hebrew prisoner. Joseph was summoned immediately, from dungeon to palace in a single day. He was shaved, washed, dressed, and brought before the throne of Pharaoh, the most powerful ruler in the world. Pharaoh described the dreams. Joseph listened calmly and answered with confidence. The dreams are one message. 7 years of abundance are coming to Egypt. After them will come 7 years of severe famine that will consume the land. Then Joseph gave counsel. Appoint a wise man to store grain during the years of plenty, so the nation may survive the famine. The room fell silent. None of Egypt's experts had answers. The prisoner did. Pharaoh rose and made a shocking decision. Can we find anyone like this man? He appointed Joseph second in command over all Egypt. Only Pharaoh himself outranked him. A royal signet ring was placed on Joseph's hand. Fine linen clothed him. A gold chain rested on his neck. Chariots carried him through the streets as people cried, "Bow the knee." Years earlier, Joseph's brothers mocked his dreams of others bowing before him. Now the dreams were unfolding, not by pride, by purpose. Joseph immediately went to work. During the 7 years of abundance, he gathered grain beyond measure. Storehouses filled across the land. Harvest after harvest was preserved. Egypt prospered like never before. Then the famine came. Rain failed. Crops died. Hunger spread from nation to nation. Families sold possessions for bread. Desperation covered the earth. But Egypt had food, and people from everywhere traveled there to survive. Among them were 10 men from Canaan, Joseph's brothers. They entered the court of Egypt's governor and bowed low before him. They did not recognize the ruler before them, dressed as Egyptian royalty, speaking through interpreters. But Joseph recognized them instantly. The men who sold him now knelt at his feet. Every memory rushed back. The pit, the chains, their laughter, his tears. Now Joseph held power over their lives. One command could imprison them. One refusal could starve them. Instead of revenge, Joseph chose wisdom. He tested their hearts. He accused them of being spies and demanded proof of their story. They said they were brothers from one family and had one younger brother at home. Joseph ordered them to bring that youngest brother, Benjamin. Until then, one brother would remain imprisoned. Terrified, they spoke among themselves. "This is because of what we did to Joseph," they said. They did not know Joseph understood every word. He turned away and wept privately. When they later returned with Benjamin, Joseph saw the brother he had not seen since youth. Emotion shook him deeply, yet he continued the final test. He secretly placed his silver cup into Benjamin's grain sack and sent them away. Soon guards pursued them and accused Benjamin of theft. The brothers were dragged back in fear. Benjamin faced slavery in Egypt. Then Judah stepped forward. Years earlier, Judah suggested selling Joseph. Now he begged to take Benjamin's place. He offered himself as a slave, so their father would not lose another son. The brothers had changed. The men who once sacrificed one brother were now willing to sacrifice themselves for another. Joseph could hold back no longer. He ordered everyone else out of the room. Then he wept so loudly the palace heard it. His brothers stood frozen in fear. Joseph stepped forward and spoke the words they never imagined hearing again. "I am Joseph." Silence crashed over the room. Faces turned pale. Hands trembled. They expected judgment. Instead, Joseph said, "Do not be afraid. You sold me here, but God sent me ahead of you to preserve life." This was strength greater than vengeance. This was power under control. This was grace. Joseph embraced Benjamin first, then each of his brothers. Tears flowed on every side. The family, shattered by jealousy, was being restored through forgiveness. Joseph sent wagons and supplies to bring his father to Egypt. When Jacob heard Joseph was alive, he could hardly believe it. For years he had mourned a son he thought dead. Now hope returned like sunrise. After a long night, when father and son finally met again, they embraced and wept together. Years of sorrow broke in one moment. Joseph settled his family in fertile land and provided for them through the famine. The rejected son became the rescuer of the family that rejected him. And that is why Joseph's story still moves hearts today. Because many know betrayal, many know waiting, many know being forgotten, falsely accused, or wounded by those closest to them. Joseph teaches that pain does not cancel purpose. The pit was real. The prison was real too. Sometimes the chapter that feels like the end is only the road to the promise. Sometimes the people who tried to bury you only planted you. And sometimes what others meant for evil becomes the very thing that saves lives. If this story inspired you, subscribe for more cinematic Bible stories brought to life for a new generation.